Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who was a Rock'em Sock'em defenseman for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings for 11 seasons. And this is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. Plenty to talk about it today, and we're going to start out talking about it with Kevin McGran of the Toronto Star, who's been covering the league for a long while, has a lot of insight. And Kevin, I wanted to have you on because, I thought coming into the season that the All-Canadian division was going to be so entertaining, and it hasn't let me down. And what I really like is what's going on at the top with the, in my opinion, the renewal of the Montreal Canadiens versus Maple Leafs rivalry. It's so much fun for me to see both of those teams performing at a high level and playing games and in a competition that's really meaningful.
Yeah, and I've been looking forward to it as well. And in addition to having what I think are some of the best scoring and playmaking stars in the game in this division, I think the Toronto-Montreal factor is terrific. I'm old enough just to have missed the original 6 era. I mean, I know it happened, but I started sort of paying attention when there were 12 and then 14 and then 16. And in that time, I believe Toronto and Montreal, they rarely ever faced each other in the playoffs. I believe the last time was 1979. One team was good and the other team was bad. Usually Montreal was good and Toronto was bad, so they weren't going to go there. And then Toronto went to another conference for a while. And even coming back and playing in the same division, they've managed to avoid each other. And so this is really, really special. It feels a little original 6 seed to me because they're going to play each other 10 times. I feel like fans are going to get to know all the players on all the teams in this one little NHL North division. And I think it's really special. And I wasn't among those that really thought Montreal was going to pull this off and be as good as they are, but they're certainly proven me wrong. And I think it's exciting for a lot of fans to watch these two teams. They've only played each other the first game of the season. They got themselves coming up the end of the week here, but it's a fun time to be a fan of the Maple Leafs and the Canadiens, I think.
Kev, my take on the Leafs currently with Kyle Dubas as general manager was that this is purely my take from a distance, that he was trying to build like a real run and gun team, all skating. And then kind of realize, and again, maybe it's unfair to him, kind of realize, geez, I need to toughen this team up a little bit. I need some more character on this team. Do you think that's the accurate assessment, or do you think that was the plan all
along? I think that's an accurate assessment. In fact, he even he didn't address the toughness issue, but he did address the character issue as something that he realized in his time running Sault Ste. Marie that he needed character. 2 or 3 seasons in, he realized his time running the AHL Marlies that he needed character 2 or 3 seasons in, and he sort of hits himself. Why didn't I realize I needed character from day one of running the Leafs? So yeah, certainly the character issue is a big one, and Joe Thornton changes that, and Wayne Simmons changes that, Zach Bogosian changes that. But toughness comes with those character guys. Certainly Simmons and Bogosian are those guys. And now they're brought up a guy, Scott Sabourin, to do that. So I think he realizes that you need guys on the bench who will do to you what you will do to their skilled players if the time comes to it. And I think, as other general managers have said in the past, when you have those guys on your side, you can walk a little taller, you can skate a little bigger, because you can get away with a little bit more.
Yep.
Kev, this is an interesting team, the Maple Leafs, from the league perspective, because they stripped it down to the chassis and then started over again. And they built a real interesting team. But the last component to come together has been the defensive side. And I've sort of had it in my head, just based on looking what's happened over the last 10 or 12 years, that they had to get a defensive team that was at least in the top 10 in terms of goals against average, to be where they need to be. They're in the middle of the pack now. I think the last time I looked, they were 14th or 15th. How close are they getting, in your mind, to being ready? We know they have the offense. We think, and I'll use that word, that they have the goaltending. How close are they on the defense now?
I agree with your assessment completely. They need to be top 10 defensively, and they're in the teens somewhere defensively. But I think they're getting there. I think TJ Brody and Morgan Riley had a few speed bumps along the way in the first few games, but they have gotten better. And Morgan Riley has played as well as he has in his time as the Maple Leafs. I think the second pair, Jake Muzzin and Justin Hall, has emerged as a really, really strong sort of shutdown pair. And Justin Hall is probably he's the poster child for late bloomers. I mean, it's 10 years after he was drafted, he's finally an NHL regular, right? So, and he is doing a very, very good job at it. Like, nobody was ever going to shut down Connor McDavid, but he's done as good a job as anybody in the North has in terms of being able to force Connor to the outside every once in a while, or check the puck away from him every once in a while. So they've made it, and Zach Bogosian has added a nice element on the third pairing, certainly in terms of penalty killing. So they are moving in the right direction. Mikko Lehtonen looks like he's going to win the job over Travis Dermott as the second sort of power play guy and puck mover, and he's an older rookie. I don't think he qualifies as a rookie at 27. So they've got some pieces together. What they don't have are a lot of guys coming up from the minors in the future to replace these guys. So this might be kind of a 1 or 2 year shot deal with these guys until they still sort out the sort of the churn that you need on defense. But they are better. Freddie Anderson, I think, makes them better. He takes a lot of heat in this city for goals allowed and his save percentage and stuff, but he faces a lot, and he is the guy that sort of makes them look in the teens when they might be a bit lower. But I do think they're making progress on the blue line.
Do you believe in Freddie, Kevin?
I do. I think he's the best goalie this team has had since Ed Belfour. And I don't know what more you can. I mean, if Carey Price was available, sure, go get him, but if Carter Hart's available, go get him. But, for what's available out there, he is the guy for them this year.
I really like John Tavares a lot as a player, and I'm not saying he's not a good player for Toronto, but do you think there's ever a part of the Leafs brass that says, maybe we shouldn't have signed him? Like, we really don't need him. We don't need to have that cap space eaten up.
I don't think they think that way. I think they're really quite happy with him because he does so many things right, and he's a good role model and all that. I did find it interesting that they needed to add leadership around him. That maybe said something that maybe he's just a little too focused on the game and doing things right, and not necessarily on relieving the pressure and having fun. So he's probably helped as much as anybody having Joe Thornton around, that sort of thing. I personally kind of hold that. I don't think they really needed, for example, to go get Patrick Marleau those years that they had him. He was probably, as great a player as he is, and he's going into the Hall of Fame. I think he sort of took the spot of Connor Brown away, and Connor Brown would look good on this team right now, and sort of a relentless third line winger. So I do think they kind of rushed things a little bit, maybe, but I don't think they regret John Tavares.
Hold on, Paul, 1 second here. You're one of the few guests that really brings your own cheerleaders to the show. Paul Pascal here,
hey, Paul.
cheering you on. What is that? It doesn't happen, right?
Paul's a great guy. You guys know Paul?
Yes,
I do.
Yeah.
Well, of course,
Yeah, for sure. Kev, I wanted to ask you about Austin Matthews. I've covered the league a long time, and boy, I do actually go back to the original six there, and not in terms of covering it, but I watch games at Olympia, and I've been to all the now defunct arenas and stuff, and in all that time, I never would have guessed that the savior of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and savior is the wrong word, but the guy that's the foundation of their rebuilding would be a guy from Arizona. But boy, as good as he's been, when I watched him this season, it feels like he's taken this game to another level.
He certainly does. He's not. I don't think he's ever going to catch Connor McDavid in terms of the overall impact on the game, but he's right there. He's very much, I think, in the Sidney Crosby mold. I've always sort of compared him a little bit to Crosby because when he's relentless on the puck, he's got a great shot. He's worked on his faceoff. He's worked on all the elements of the game that are not innate, that are things that you can actually physically do to become better, as Sidney Crosby did in his early years, and he can he's worked on his skating too. I mean, he's much faster now and I didn't think he was slow to begin with.
No.
That goal he scored the other night, just sort of zooming out of nowhere, taking the puck and then scoring on Braden Holtby. It was like wow. Yeah, he is driven to be the best hockey player he can possibly be. And I think he would like to be better than Connor McDavid. And as long as he's still trying to be better than Connor McDavid, he's always going to become a better player all the time.
Step away from Toronto for a second here, talking about Ottawa Senators. I think we all knew they were in a rebuilding mode, but I thought they went out and got some guys that would kind of help them at least be more competitive. Have they played a lot worse than we all thought they would?
I certainly think they have, but they make, like, well, Tom, you've probably been through it, right? Like when you bring in 7 or 8 players, it probably takes a bit of time for you guys all to gel. So I give them a little bit of a free pass for the first 10 or 15 games. And I would certainly hope for the Senators fans' point of view that the second half of the season will be better than the first half of the season. I think they'll be a tougher out, but I'm a little surprised they've been rolling over the way they have. I think they've got a lot of good pieces there. I know that their best players are very young, so they've got to learn. But I still think they had enough to keep things close in the third period.
Kevin, sticking in that division, I wanted to ask you about the Edmonton Oilers. Like Ken Holland, I don't think from lack of trying, but didn't get a goalie when so many goalies were available in this offseason. And I thought at the time that it may end up haunting him. And now I'm just as convinced as it will. I mean, if you start rating the goaltending in that division, the Oilers' goaltending ranks last, in my opinion. Where do you see that, and is that going to cost them? And is this a terrible thing for the league, considering they've got 2 of the top 5 offensive players in the game?
I don't know if I put Mikko Koskinen that low. I think Vancouver's goaltending has probably been a little bit more disappointing than Edmonton's. And Edmonton's had to deal with injuries. Vancouver's been playing their guys.
Yeah, I agree with it, but with what you're saying. But in terms of, would you rather have the Vancouver goalies or the Edmonton? I'd rather have the Vancouver goalies.
Well, I'd certainly rather have Thatcher Demko coming up. That's for
right.
Sure. I don't think Mikko Koskinen is necessarily solely to blame for Edmonton's struggles. He does tend to let in a goal or two that you kind of go, wow, maybe that shouldn't have happened. And that can be deflating. Certainly it was against Calgary the other night. I feel bad for Connor McDavid. I feel bad for Leon Draisaitl that it really does seem to be 2 guys and 18 others. And there's not, they've got some nice pieces coming. I mean, I think Jesse Puljujärvi has played very well the last few games. And I think Kyle Yamamoto has turned it up a notch, and Darnell Nurse is becoming something. I agree with you. I think goaltending is, that's it, right? Show you a good team, will show you a good goalie, right? They go hand in hand. And if you don't have the goalie who can steal the game, and I would argue that Freddie Anderson does at times, you're not going to win games you shouldn't. You're not going to win all the games that you should.
Switching over to Winnipeg now. Now that they made that trade for Dubois, they've got the top 4 centermen in the league, probably, right? I'm not saying they're all the best, but I mean, as a unit, those are 4 good centermen of that team. I think we're underestimating Winnipeg a little bit. I think they're a pretty good hockey team right now.
I agree with you. I believe in strength down the middle, and when I look at what they've got, Scheifele and Dubois as a 1-2, that's almost as good as Toronto and Edmonton, right? They're almost right there. Maybe they are right there, because Dubois, he can be he can be relentless. He's strong. He can score. But then you go 3-4.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's got as good a 3-4 as Winnipeg. So you get some line matching. You get some line matching in there. You maybe get a few goals from your bottom 6. They're tough. They're going to be an offensive team, and they've got the goaltending there. So they'll be right in the conversation with the Leafs in Montreal. The interesting thing is the Leafs and Montreal really haven't played each other, so there's no separation between them. One of them hasn't dominated the other, and Winnipeg could pretty much come up the middle if Toronto and Montreal play 500 against each other.
That would be interesting to see a playoff series against Winnipeg. How do you match up against those 4 centermen, right? That's
a tough matchup, because they got good scorers on the wing, right? So they could just keep coming at you.
Kev, well, it's time to let you go and let you go do your thing covering the Maple Leafs. But before you go, what's your thought on the the 4-game series that we've had thus far under this new format? A thumbs up or thumbs down on them?
Well, I give it a rollicking thumbs up. I kind of love that whatever happened at the end of the third period, you can maybe look forward to the beginning of the first period, the next one. Like I just think it's great. The storylines, you don't really have to think. You just know what's going to happen in the next game, and you can watch out for it. And if they don't do it, then what was the coaching adjustments they made, and I just think every little nuance of the game is that much more amplified when you see a team 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I got the old time hate going there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kev. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, and I hope we can have you on as we move deeper in the season. I'm expecting the Maple Leafs to go far into the playoffs as well.
Well, I'm expecting them to get there, but winning that first round, that seems to be a little bugaboo of theirs. Who knows?
Yeah, sounds good. All right, thank you so much, Kev.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks a lot, guys.
That was Kevin McGran of the Toronto Star joining us, talking about the Canadian division. And, that Canadian division, just to kind of carry on this tone, as much as we talk about how strong the East Division is and everything, I don't think there's a more entertaining division than the All-Canadian division. And he's right. Like they got Matthews, they got Draisaitl, they've got McDavid, they got the young Vancouver teams with Quinn Hughes and Pettersson. They've got Connor Hellebuck. The only thing I would say about the Winnipeg Jets is their defense is really probably going to hold them back, in my opinion. We'll see. You never know. And I think Kevin Cheveldayoff will aggressively look around and see what's available to try to clean that up a little bit. But it hasn't unfolded exactly the way that we thought it would out there, but it's still been great. And by not unfolding, I think if I look at the Oilers defense, and it'd be interesting to get your perspective as a former NHL player, like it seems to me that the personnel they have are better than the sum of their performance level.
Definitely.
Like I really like Adam Larsson. You look at the number of hits he has, he contributes a goal here and there. He's very noticeable. He's very active in his own zone. He does a pretty thorough job. I like Nurse. Nurse is visible and has skill and everything else. I don't understand why they're still seems like they give up way too many chances. So
there's something missing there, right? I mean, I've talked so many times about Nashville. I think there's something missing there, but it's a different thing in Edmonton where it's not like a lack of effort or selfish play or whatever. I almost wonder if they defer too much to Draisaitl and to McDavid, right? It's like they're such dynamic players. Does everybody else kind of take a back seat to them? I don't know if that's the case or not. Because again, you and I both think the world of Kenny Holland, both as a person and as a general manager. He hasn't been there really long enough to make that big of a difference. But
let me ask you, as a former defenseman who played with Wayne Gretzky, if you're back on the defense and you're on a team that has a Gretzky, or in this case, a Draisaitl and McDavid, do you worry more about your defensive responsibilities or giving the puck to your superstar in a manner in which they're going to want that puck?
It's a great question. So I'll never forget the first games. I played in the league 7 or 8 years before I played with Wayne in LA. And so I was a veteran player. And I'll never forget coming around. I was in our own zone and I was behind the net. I'm coming around. I see Wayne on the boards. And I think, okay, I'll just throw it around the boards there to Wayne, and Wayne will do it because that's Wayne. Wayne can do everything, right? Well, the defenseman, big 6'4", I don't know who it was, the defenseman comes barreling down on Wayne. Wayne gets run over. And because Wayne is a fantastic player, but Wayne can't do everything. That's not his game. So it does at first, especially as a younger player. Like you want You want to be a good teammate to the Wayne Gretzky's, the Connor McDavids. Like, you want them to like you on the team, right? So you're trying to get them the puck as much as possible because you think that's their job. But that doesn't always work, right? I mean, if that happens too much, the other team sees that, and now your best player, like Gretzky, gets run over because you're trying to get it to him too much. So definitely, especially as a younger player, and that's the thing. And to go back to the LA days, we then had a bunch of veteran guys. So once I got over that, thinking Wayne could do everything, we had Larry Robinson there, we had Tim Waters there, a lot of Doug Crossman eventually got there. So guys that have been around a lot, and they played against Wayne, and they knew, well, yeah, Wayne's great, but I've got to treat him like everybody else. I can't be over getting him the puck. But for young players to be playing with Connor McDavid, there's got to be like, man, you see some of those nights where he gets 5 or 6 points, and there's two of them, right? There's Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of that from a young player's standpoint, that you don't want to be the one that doesn't get the puck to the star player. There's no question about that. Just going back to the defense really quick too, and I know we've had this discussion before, but I think back to when Pittsburgh won the first of their last 2 cups. And I was talking, I just don't think Pittsburgh's defense is good enough, right? They had Chris Letang and then a bunch of other guys, really. And then they went on and won 2 cups. I just think it's, yes, it obviously helps if you've got a better group of defensemen, but I think you can have good, solid defensemen and have the whole team play a great defensive game and get by with that and win. So I think of Winnipeg, I think to myself, man, I think they could really have a good shot at winning. But again, that's the same. But then you go to the Edmonton to say, well, okay, they don't have the best defensemen. They've got the 2 guys you mentioned, Nurse and Larson, but the rest of them, I just don't see that. I don't see that good defensive game or that discipline that they need to have a good defensive team. So that's my take.
Yeah. I wanted to go over, let me call up the standings here.
Who we got? Canadian North Division?
Yeah, no. This is from the league perspective, the teams that we have at the top of all 31 teams. And according to, and this is by points, not by winning percentage. Otherwise, you'd have Vegas on top. But they have at 9-2-1 Toronto, then Boston 8-1-2, and I wanted to talk about Boston. Montreal 8-2-2, Philadelphia 8-3-2, Tampa Bay 7-1-1, Vegas 7-1-1, Colorado 7-3-1. Now, these are the teams that we expected to be on top. Like, we really haven't had any surprises. Maybe Montreal's a little bit better, but I think we all predicted that Montreal, like I had Montreal second in that division. You could just tell that through targeting acquisition, Mark Bergevin, the general manager, did a tremendous job. Like, they needed scoring, and they went out and got Toffoli, who's been outstanding as long as he keeps playing against Vancouver. They needed size and toughness and scoring, and Josh Anderson has fit the bill. They wanted a big, steady, dependable defenseman. Joel Edmondson has done a fantastic job, and I think the underrated acquisition was Jake Allen.
Yes, absolutely.
How many general managers in this league would have been willing to put $14 million into their goaltending?
Totally.
But Mark was, and I think it's paying off. You look at Jake Allen's numbers, and they're actually better than Carey Price's. Not to suggest that he's a better goalie than Carey Price, but he's played well for them and he's delivered. And there's so much going on there. But I wanted to ask you about some of those teams, because I thought what I was wrong on. I thought Boston was going to take half step back. Right. No Chara. He's gone. That group at the top with Marchand and Bergeron are a year older.
Pasternak was out.
Pasternak was out, and Torrey Krug left through free agency. That's some big losses. Chara and Torrey Krug, and here they are right at the top again. And you can argue that Halak has played better than Tuukka Rask. Yeah. So he hasn't been at his best.
Right.
So, and yet Boston's still there. And that speaks to, and I'm going to bring up that word because you like that word. You've made me a believer. Yeah. Culture.
Oh, yeah.
They know how to win there. That's part of who they are. They say, how do you want to play? We'll play that way and we'll beat you.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the guy talked, didn't they just come back? I think they beat Philadelphia twice in a row, coming back late in games too, right? So, yeah, and you're right. I thought okay, they lost Krug. That's not good. And Pasternak was going to be out early. That obviously is going to hurt him a lot. But to me, when they lost Chara, I mean, that culture where, to me, you lost a big chunk of the culture in your team. But I guess that they obviously knew a lot better than we did that the culture is really the whole group there now. It's starting at the leadership with Cam Neely and Sweeney, the coaching staff, the players, and Patrice Bergeron. I think he's still there, which, that's showing up to play hard every game and being a total professional and always doing the right things and everything. He does that. So, yeah, I guess, again, we've always talked about, for me, I've always talked that Boston probably more than anybody has that great culture. But again, I thought a lot of it would rely on a guy like Chara. When he left, I was really amazed at it. Why would you let him go, especially when he signed in Washington for like $750,000 or something? So that was a surprise to me to let him go, but they obviously knew better and that they've got a great culture in that locker room. And like I said, even if Rask isn't playing his best, I just think, Halak is still a good goaltender, but I think it's just that commitment to defense that they're so good at. So, yeah, they are a surprise team. They're doing so well.
Yeah, Sweeney might be the most underrated general manager in the league in terms of, he keeps, they have guys that they plug in who start out being secondary guys and then suddenly move into primary roles, or at least get expanded roles.
And just the decision to let Chara go, that's a tough decision. He's like a huge man in so many ways, not just physically, but his aura in the locker room and on the team, and you just let him walk away. And he obviously made the right decision.
Well, and Chara is such a loyal guy too. Like that, that's almost heartless is too strong a word, but it takes some to let go a guy who's been so important to you and so forth, and but the part of this was Chara's decision as well. They offered him a role, they just offered him a different role.
What was it?
Yeah, he offered him a diminished role. He just said, look, it isn't going to be the same role you had before. So Chara interpreted that as being less minutes, and he didn't really want that.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, I saw him yesterday. He's on the power play for Washington. So he's actually playing a bigger role. Yeah. Yeah,
and for sure. Well, he's got that. We all know what kind of shot he has. He's won the hardest shot competition. He can, really crank it. He's a big man.
Speaking of yesterday's game with Washington and Philly, and I've said this so many times, I watch Philly and I'm going, I just don't get it. But they find a way to win. I mean, they lost those 2 games late in the game to Boston. But, man, they were down with Washington there, and they fought back. And Carter Hart played fantastic, held them in there. I watched them play. Like, Drew isn't scoring goals. I see that team and I go, how are they doing it? But they're obviously doing it, and they're what 4th overall in the league, so they're doing something right there.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before, but my wife was a 20-year high school soccer coach, and she always termed the ability to find ways to win survival skills. Yeah. And she says good athletic teams have survival skills, and that translates in her mind to hockey in addition to soccer that she coached, where she'd run up against teams that just knew how to find ways to win whatever the situation was. And she says that's an athletic ability as well.
And very, very important. Speaking of your beautiful wife, did she look at my Sunday meal I had for Super Bowl?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit too.
Did she approve?
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, she's a really big on homemade hummus. I think I told you the story. We went to a Mediterranean restaurant, and she actually probed, I guess would be a better term, the chef to find out why his hummus was better than her homemade. And he said he told her the key is fresh homemade ingredients.
Fresh homemade.
You don't want to get any canned garbanzo beans or any of that stuff. Yeah.
I use the canned beans too.
Well, she sent me to the store, which is the bane of my existence. And always I got to find things that's not, like if they send you to get a bag of lettuce, you know where you're going to find that. Yeah. Or a bag of rice. Sure. But when she says, go find me dry garbanzo beans, I'm wandering around the store looking for those kinds of things.
So she gets the dry beans and then cooks them?
Yes. But she soaks them I think they were soaking for 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
She soaks them. And it reminds me of my grandmother Brown, years and years ago. She's been dead since the early 70s. But when I was growing up, she would do the same thing with, navy beans or pinto beans,
Right.
where you soak them the day before.
Right.
For all day, and then you start cooking them the next day.
Right.
So,
see, my mother she's experimented too with her cooking. I was a lot like she was, and she tried to learn how to make baked beans. She didn't realize she had to soak the beans, so she went to all the trouble to bake the beans. Tasted great, but the bean was just a little bit hard because she hasn't soaked it yet. So she learned, but it was I'll forget that.
Yeah, my wife was watching the Pioneer Woman, who has a show on the Cooking Network, and she had a soup that called for a can of hominy. And my wife said, "Who in the heck has a can of hominy in their pantry?" And I said, "My Grandma Brown used to have a can of hominy. Like, she wouldn't be caught dead without a can of hominy in her, because we had hominy when I was
What is hominy?
It's sort of like a corn. It's white, and I'm not sure, but I think it's from the corn family. But and she would just serve it out of the can. This discussion of my grandmother has prompted me to recall, and I've tried to find out from other relatives whether they remember this, and no one remembers it. But my grandmother was out of the Depression era, and grew up poor and so forth. And so she had this thing that she cooked this brown bread in a coffee can, a Maxwell House or a chock full of nuts coffee can. And she'd make this, make it up, the dough. And it seems to me there were nuts and raisins in it.
Really?
It wasn't a fruit cake or something, but she'd throw it in the can and then put it in the oven and cook it for 425 for whatever. Then she'd get out, and then she'd dump the can. And then there'd be this, can shaped, bread cakeish looking thing that
how did it taste?
Would serve. It was good. It was real good. So I've looked for it on the internet and haven't been able to find it, but I'm sure somebody else had.
Now, real quick on the hummus, does your wife make her own tahini?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure she does that all the time, but I know she's capable and does do that from time to time, depending on what.
Just sesame seeds and oil, really.
Right. Yeah. No, that's right. Anyway, we've moved into the cooking show portion of our show again. So I want to go back to hockey before we go, because I wanted to talk about what's been one of our favorite subjects recently is Tony DeAngelo. Tom.
Yes.
Here we go again. I read, I believe it was Bob McKenzie had 4 teams that were interested. Now I can't remember what they were.
Calgary was, to me, Calgary was the lead one. That is, I thought.
Yeah, and the Detroit Red Wings were in it as well, which really surprised me.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because Steve Yzerman traded him away.
Yeah,
he was the first to move him.
Right.
He drafted him and then traded him. He was a first round pick, and Steve traded him for a second round pick.
Right.
And
the rumor was Calgary was going to get the give a first round pick back.
I don't know that I've seen that rumor. Was that a Bob McKenzie rumor? That doesn't sound like a Bob McKenzie rumor.
I don't know where he saw it. We were on a show one day last week, and somebody sent us a note saying that it was actually the Thursday show we were on. And somebody sent us a note, said they heard that rumor.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. Although it seems to me someone had mentioned they saw it. I find that hard to believe.
I agree with you. Unless, the rumor is too, the Rangers are going to eat part of the salary too.
Yeah,
maybe half of the salary.
Bob said a 33 1/3, I think,
33%
of the salary. So,
I'm happy for the kid. I hope he goes. We were talking about it on our show too. In fairness, listen, he's obviously done some things that he'll probably regret later on. But if you're on an older team, the Rangers are in that young phase, right? And apparently, he was really liked amongst his teammates with the Rangers. Like, the players really liked him. It's just some of the stuff he was doing obviously didn't sit too well with management. So, hopefully, he gets to an older team where they can both help him to say, listen, don't do that stuff. And then if he does that stuff, they can absorb it better than I think they felt like they were going to here with the Rangers. But
it's probably fair that some players liked him. I know he was friends with Adam Fox and Brendan Lemieux. I've heard that. But I do think that the players would all agree that he has had a tendency to say the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Even though they liked him. And that can be hard on a room too.
Right.
And I think more than most that you don't want the guys that just say the wrong things either. Because
and he was
kicked off.
Apparently, like, he was kind of wanting to coach the team too. Like
well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't. First of all, I'm not implying his politics.
Yeah.
I'm implying just, he just had this way. He sort of bucked authority a little bit. So,
Yeah.
You're trying to win, and he's questioning some of the decisions, and that doesn't always play well.
Right. And and that happens a lot in the game where players don't agree with the coaches, but they handle it the right way. Like you go into the coach's office, you close the door, and you have a meeting with the coach and say, listen, should I be getting played more or whatever? And it stays there. Like nobody else knows about it. But when you're voicing your opinion publicly like that, questioning the coach, especially when it's a young team and the team really isn't, hasn't had a great start to the season, when that's happening, you're undermining the coach then, right? And then you're hurting the team atmosphere. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it helps to blow off some steam. My knowledge of that comes from, coach or GM or player relationships with the media. And one of my favorite stories didn't involve me, although I did have a run-in with him as well, Doug McClain, when he was the coach of Florida Panthers. David Neal worked for the Miami Herald and has told the story of he was going up an escalator and Doug McClain was coming down in a hotel that they were in, and Doug didn't like something he had written the day before, so they were arguing on the escalator coming down, and then when they got to the bottom, I don't remember which one, the other one ran back up so they could continue the argument. So they're standing in the this hotel, a really nice hotel, and they're really getting into it with one another, almost nose to nose and going on. And David or Doug said, and Doug, by the way, is just an unbelievable great guy.
Yeah, he's a hothead.
He said, we look like a couple of idiots here, yelling at each other. And then David said, you're right, we really do. Why don't we just walk away and stop looking like a couple of idiots? And then they've laughed about it, obviously. Since then.
I had a similar thing. I think it was probably like my second or third year in the league. And Frank Brown is a great guy too. I was writing for the Daily News, I think, here in New York. And I wasn't playing well at the time. And he wrote an article that was very accurate that stated the fact that I wasn't playing well. And I sulked. I must have sulked for a month. And Frank was around the team all the time, like really a good guy and personally known everything. I sulked. I wouldn't talk to him for about a month. And he finally, to his credit, came to me. He goes, Tom, you weren't playing well. I wrote the truth. Like he was really good in the way he explained it to me. It was like he shouldn't have had to be doing that. I was sulking like a little baby because the reporter said something bad about me, and I felt terrible after. I was like, oh God, he's right. And I was playing bad. And actually, by him writing that article, it kind of woke me up a little bit. I played better after that. So, but it is funny the confrontations they have sometimes.
Yeah, you see, he made you a better player.
Yes, he did. There's no question. I tell him that all the time now. He really did make me better. He's a good guy. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, the confrontation I had with Doug during the playoffs in '96 when they made it all the way to the final and they were in their old rink, and I actually remember it vividly, not because of Doug being so that he was volcanic at me, but I was standing at the time with Brian Murray, and it was a very cold rink there, and I can actually remember Brian. The late Brian Murray holding his coffee, and the steam off his coffee was just kind of going up, and it was kind of in my face when Doug, came in. And what had happened is the night before, Eric Lindros, they were playing the Flyers, had a remarkable game, and it carried on. And Doug stopped, and he had read my story, and he goes, you're just like the rest of them, Eric Lindros. That's all you want to write about is Eric Lindros. There's no team in Florida here that's playing well. It's just Eric Lindros. And what I remember was, and then Doug just left me and walked off into his office, and Brian turned to me and said, he's been like that for a week, Kevin. I don't even know what to do with him anymore. and then just took a sip of his coffee, and I said, I'll go talk to him. And so, I went and talked to him, and by the time I left it, we were laughing again.
Yeah. And Doug was like that, right? He's a great guy, but he would lose his temper. But then he would laugh about it after. I didn't ever see it, but him and Nick Kypreos were on a TV show together up in Toronto, one of those noon shows that they had all the time. And apparently they got into a real nasty fight on air. Where I think Nick Kypreos mentioned something like, you're a terrible general manager, your teams never make the playoffs, all this kind of stuff. And they worked together for many years after that too. But apparently it was
Doug could be hot tempered. I actually witnessed a shouting match between him and Brian Burke, as well. And there's guys get into it. But I would say, I know both of those guys really, really well, and both of them are two of the kindest, nicest people you're going to meet. But this is a competitive business.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be in the media, you have to expect that you guys are going to be mad at you. That's just the nature of the beast. And
I think in the hockey world, we're all as players coming up are used to the fact that guys like that are great friends can get in fights in practice. And that's over with. Like 2 minutes later, it's over with. It's
Dylan Larkin in just the season and Werenski of Columbus are very good friends. Dylan Larkin left tickets for Werenski's family in Detroit, and then the two of them got into it at the end of a game.
Yeah,
and this, I think the Sutters have fought, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
so brother versus brother, those kind of things. Happen, and it all comes from the competitive nature of what we're trying to do. And the media is the same way. We're competing. We're competing against other medias. You don't want to get beat by. When I was at USA Today, I didn't want somebody to think that ESPN was doing a better job or whatever. So that's just the way it is. So anyway, we've gone probably a little too long today, but a lot to talk about. So much going on. The hockey has been great. We didn't get to, and that'll be a final shot here. I just wrote about it. I'm sure you know what went on in Columbus, where a goal was challenged by John Tortorella for being offside. The linesman apparently on the ice on the video review thought it had been cleared by the office. It hadn't been. It was discovered that they resumed play too quickly during the in between period intermission. They looked and it was indeed offside. And, so Tortorella, because he had challenged it, the team got a power play, the Carolina Hurricanes. So they rescinded the last 45 seconds that extended into the third period. That goal had given Carolina a 4-3 lead, but they rescinded that power play, but they didn't take the goal off the board. So the goal was stuck. So my argument is, and this is what I just wrote, is to me that's no different than when you don't know whether the puck went in on a goal, so you continue play, and even if another goal is scored, if you find that first goal went in, then all that play that happened is erased. We should have gone back, starting with the goal, declared it a no goal, played the last minute and 15 over again, because the goal is to get it right. Now they were going to look bad no matter what they did. So if you're going to look bad, they being the league, shouldn't you at least do it right? Get it right.
So you're right. I didn't see that, honestly. So you're right. So obviously they missed the offside to start with. So that happens. But then the system's in place to correct that. They didn't do that properly. So you've got to correct the mistake. Right. So, and I agree with you totally on the comparison to if a puck goes in the net but you don't see it, then you go back and now you see that it's goal. So all that play after that goal now doesn't really even matter. It wasn't even there. So.
Right. And I get it. No one wants to take a goal off the board when you've said that you reviewed it, which you didn't properly. But you might as well just admit your mistake and then just do it right. Like, wouldn't we all respect the league?
Yeah. But here is the thing, though. It is right. Once after a disputed goal or once a goal is scored and they start play, the team that wants to try to challenge it doesn't have the right to challenge it at that point. So maybe they're saying, okay, I was trying to think.
But they did challenge it.
Right. They did challenge it. So how are they rationalizing that? I guess because the play started again, they're saying, well, the play started. Even if we screwed up, the play started again, so the goal stands.
I'm sure that's what they're saying. But you had a chance to correct it. We were at the end of the period. We could have gone back. And I'm sure that's what they're going to say. But sometimes common sense has to prevail.
Yeah.
But
I guess they've got to make the decision pretty quickly, right? So now do they sit back later on and say, like, that rather than debate like you and I are having, like, man, we screwed that up. We totally messed that up. We shouldn't have allowed that goal to count. Yeah.
But
has the league made a statement on it?
Yeah, they said there was a miscommunication, but they didn't explain why they didn't roll the goal back. But we don't like half truths or half-hearted efforts or you don't try to halfway correct wrong.
Yeah.
So you got to fully correct it and take your lumps.
Yeah.
Like what's anybody going to say if you at least get it right? What are we going to say? Well, you should have taken that goal off. Well, why? You didn't deserve it.
Right.
So I don't know.
And more importantly, I am not Tom Stradamus. I predicted that Kansas City was going to win 42-21 last night. Not even close. They didn't come close on that one.
Yeah, well, those are the way the Super Bowl goes. So I thought Tampa was going to win that game. I believed that Brady was going to be Brady, but I didn't foresee.
Yeah, I saw he was going to throw 3 interceptions or something like that. That's what I thought, but
all right. Thanks for joining us, Tom. Where do you find
again? If everybody wants to listen to the radio version of this show, you go to radio.co at 365 Sports. You can get Kevin Allen. He writes more stuff on Hockey Buzz, and then you've got your other podcast, which I forget the name of it all.
hockeydebates.com, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m.
Perfect. All right, guys. We'll see you on Wednesday.